Hello.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good.
Good.
How's my sound?
It's great.
Is it booming in your ear?
No, it sounds nice.
Oh.
Sounds rich.
Why do you have a calendar of a motorcycle behind you?
It's actually a little squirrel on a motorcycle. This
No, well, that makes sense.
this little
You don't have to explain.
this calendar, it's all squirrels.
You don't have to explain. It makes sense now. It makes so much sense.
You look good. You got like some Dolly Parton hair.
Thanks.
And that's
I did a new twist.
the biggest compliment I could give you.
God bless her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just
She's
let's invoke her spirit into this discussion.
come to us through the Ouija board, Mrs. Dolly Parton. She's probably grieving right now. She doesn't have time to talk to us.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Poor thing.
I was waiting for you, right? Because we were trying to get all this stuff taken care of. And I was just waiting patiently with my little headphones on. I'm just putting cream cheese on a bagel, in case you're wondering what's happening over here. And as I'm sitting there waiting for you, I start hearing noises in my headphones. It was just a radio station. But that's never happened before.
It was picking up
I think
radio?
CBC. Also, why do I look so tan? I swear to you.
Have you
I'm-
not just got back from Mexico?
Yeah, but I'm not this tan. There must be some sort of filter or something. Because
Okay, well, they do have filters, but they said my computer can't handle it.
well, they just automatically threw it on me. They're like, this chick.
She's like, we can't afford to have this.
the bill's in the
You
mail.
do look quite like red brown. You look red brown.
I don't think I am red brown, so that's where it's a little bit. And like I've had a few meetings with work recently, video meetings, and I don't look brown in those videos. So I don't know what's going on. I think my hands look weird.
Red brown.
Well, I usually have a variety of things that are typed up, that are the handwritten. Like I have.
Sounds like a fucking nightmare.
Well, that's because I'll start okay, I'm going to have a nice, consistent, whatever. This is going to be from start to finish. And then I'm collecting more and more information. And I'm like, I'll just have tabs open and I'll highlight things. And it's mania. But it takes us time for organizing. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to hear about, I've been waiting 133 days, if not more, to hear about your haunted tour experience, but I don't know if we're going to have time now because it's already 1:55.
Yeah. And I can tell you a little bit about it. It's also been a little while. So kind of feel like, this is just kind of coming directly at me from left field. I should have known. I should have prepared. I should have been ready. But as usual, your favorite thing
I don't want to rush
do-
through it. I don't want to rush through it.
Well, I couldn't do a whole episode on it anyways.
Yeah, that's fine.
So
That's fine.
you want me to tell you about it or you don't want me to tell you about it?
Don't tell me about it. I wanted you to tell me about it, but now I don't think we should. I think we should not rush it.
I have a few things to say. One, I can tell a quick little story that you already know, Kim, about the potential ghost in our house and our new house. And also, before I do that, my dear friend, Claire, I'm not going to give the rest of her information. She's a private person, is a huge fan of this podcast. I knew hi, Claire. Anyways, I hate that I did that. And I knew she listened at the beginning. I didn't know she was continually listening. She says it's very comforting to be able to put us on and listen to.
Oh God, that tickles my bits.
Put those away. And she said, this is the reason why I'm telling you this, not just to blow up our egos or anything like that. But she said she loves when we do the psychic test and where one of us, and like we just dropped that because I was like, no one wants to hear this, right? No one cares about this. But apparently she loved it.
Well, listen, I wanted to incorporate it into this and I dropped it because we didn't have enough time. So I was going to talk about that, how like, I think we need to go back to it.
Okay. Well, so you've heard it here. Kim is committed that going forward, we will do it. So there will be one very happy listener. And that's all that matters.
Just one.
Just one.
That's all we need.
Yeah.
We're doing this for you, Claire Bear.
Exactly. But ghosts. So I just want the world out there, anyone who can access this, to know that since we've moved, there's been some spooky dooky stuff happening. Personally, I don't think it's that spooky, but Carly's convinced, my partner is convinced, that we have a ghost. It's a nice ghost, so there's nothing creepy feeling here. The first thing that happened, we have a little shower speaker that is stuck to the wall of our shower. And Carly said and we go through Bluetooth or whatever to listen to podcast music, whatever it may be, when we're showering. And Carly said as she was getting out and like, drying or whatever, she heard through the speaker, "Hi."
I guarantee she did. That's so weird.
Yeah. And I was like, I can't remember exactly the details because it was a little while ago, but I think I felt like maybe I had said something or like there had been the TV or something like that. Or no, I remember what it was. I thought that because I was listening to something on my phone, like a Facebook video, just like mere moments before she came out. And I thought maybe my Bluetooth patched through to that thing really quickly. And maybe she just caught like, I don't know, one word of it. Just hating on her, telling her she's crazy. But then
just gaslighting her.
Gaslighting. Anyways. And so like I was just like walking around denying it, and she thought it was ridiculous since I'm a host of a ghost podcast. And so then I think it was like maybe later that day I have a little milk frother that sits on a base, and I had used it that morning, so I took it back out to once it was clean to put it back on its base. The minute I put it on its base, it turned on. I didn't press anything. Like it turned on, and it turned on the cold feature. There's cold and there's hot, and I never use the cold feature. I use the hot feature to steam my milk. So I was like, "Is this you, ghost?" We don't know.
Did you get an answer?
I didn't. And then there was something else that happened recently that you said was not a ghost, but I don't even remember what it is.
Yeah. That was the recording. There was a recording.
Oh yeah, that was kind of creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah, essentially I was videoing the dogs being cute and Carly was talking to me, and the very beginning of the video was the very last little bit of Carly talking, and it sounded like a demon. Kim thinks it just sounds like Carly, but I don't think Carly sounds like...
Yes, it just sounded like Carly. But it also sounded like, because of where you clicked the record in the middle, like maybe there was some like electronic speaker dysfunction which made it more guttural.
Maybe. Who's the naysayer now?
This bitch.
Yeah, like if it was one isolated thing, but you put them all together, you stack them up. I don't know.
Probably haunted.
Yeah, but you know what we won't do? We won't be doing a Ouija board here.
Think you need to open your mind.
Wow.
And listen to what I have to say before you make that decision.
Welcome to Ghosts, I guess. Where two Canadian ladies get together to talk about weird supernatural shit that doesn't seem to have a place in normal conversation. We talk about our own experiences, invite other guests to share theirs, which we should do more of because we haven't done that in a while. And at the end of every episode, we will discuss how much our conversation and stories convinced us, or didn't, to believe in the paranormal. So, do we believe in ghosts? It's hard to say, but please join us as we talk about it anyway. you like how I cut you off?
I loved it. It was so good. Also, someone's banging their mic, and I don't know if it's me or you, but I'm hearing like bang, bang, bang.
I was laughing, and there was maybe a little bit of shaking, but I cannot laugh anymore, if that would be better for you.
It's like you're touching something, or is it me touching something?
I don't know. That was you.
Like, move like this. Touch the table. Yeah. No.
But I was never doing that. I was like,
that. It just made a sound. That.
Okay, that's my large, pillowy breasts bumped against the desk as I'm laughing, okay? I wish she wouldn't body shame me in such a way.
Those are just my tits.
And they're out of control, and they will never be tamed. Never.
Oh, okay. We're going to talk about the Ouija board. All right. And I'll tell you, this has been in the works for a while, and I had a secret plan to get Leah to join us, but we just couldn't coordinate last minute, so she's not going to join us.
Wow. That is...
It would have been so good, but like, who has the time?
She should have found it. She should have found the time.
To be fair, she was trying really hard to find the time, and then I would just like forget. And then
okay, so we see who's really to blame here.
It's not her.
She would
have been good.
She wouldn't have been able to do midday anyways, because she's a big fancy saleswoman, and she's got to get those commissions.
No, she was willing and ready.
Wow.
She was just like, I can find a quiet booth, and I was like, great. And then I never wrote back.
She's gonna be so, and this is just gonna get released, and she's gonna be like
into the world.
What the actual fuck?
Well, we'll just have her on proper one day.
I liked the idea of it being a surprise.
Yeah, me too. But you know, it's the thought that counts.
Okay, so we'll go with.
Okay. So if you follow us on social media, you'll know I put a little call out to ask if we should use the Ouija board, right? And boy, oh boy, did we get a hell of a lot of people like essentially saying, girl, is you dumb? And
I think I was one of them. I think I was one of them.
Yeah. And your sister Leah was just like texting you ferociously, saying like, no.
She texted me. She texted me. I was like working. She called me. And she's like, I don't know who's responsible for your social media, but you will not, like, not even like, don't do it. Not even I have concerns, just you will not be doing a Ouija board.
I love this.
Yeah. And I was like, I
love it.
I know I won't be. Like, I don't ever want to do that. Carly and I are like vehemently on, would that even be the right word in this instance? But anyways,
yeah,
we agreed not to do something like that. That's not a good idea. We don't want to, and Leah was like, you're going to open up a door. You're going to invite the darkness in, and you will never be able to close it. And so
Carly was like, not on my watch.
Not on my watch. Carly's just like, hard no.
And here I am, sitting in my little happily haunted house with my little spirits thinking like, what is going on? Darkness. Like I heard it was dangerous. I was going to invite demons, darkness. This was the only tone. It's not like the overall tone. It was the only thing I heard from everyone. And it just like shocked me how resolute everyone was. Nobody was even like, oh, okay, well, give it a well-informed and cautious try, but like take precautions, blah, blah, blah. Not a single person, which I find sus. So I know Ouija boards are used a lot in like horror movies and spooky stories, but I didn't think they're like exclusively bad. So I got to thinking, why? Why are they exclusively bad? And if they are really channeling spirits, why are only the bad ones coming through? And is this the case at all?
We're going to find out. Because you did some thoughtful research, I'm sure.
I did.
I want to just have like an initial comment on why I feel the way I do, and then you can change my mind as you...
No, I need you to write it down and save it in the end.
About how I feel about it? Ahead of time?
Yes.
Well, that's strange.
So what I'm going to ask you to do is take out a little piece of paper.
I have it right in front of me. Because like as you talk, I want to take notes.
And also don't Google anything
What would I be?
I want your fresh
What would I Google?
perspective. I'm telling you, you're going to Google something.
I think I just want to make it clear what I said I was going to do, just so that if I don't do it right now, which is fine, I do it later. That when we get to that later point, you're not going to be like, "Oh, that's not what I thought you were going to do."
Okay, it doesn't matter.
I was just going to say where my apprehension has come from on the Ouija boards in the past. That's what I was going to say. You want me to save that?
Can't wait to hear about it.
But I'm saving it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't think I need to write it down.
Okay.
Okay. Because
you got it in your brain.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, in your heart and soul.
Yeah.
Okay. So, everyone thinks they're just exclusively bad. Why? I thought, why does everyone think that? Where did the perception come from? And that's what I wanted to investigate. So I'm going to go through a series of questions that I need answers to.
You don't have a Ouija board in front of you right now, right? That you're touching and making me be a part of without my consent?
No, I have one beside.
Knowledge?
I have one beside me. I have one beside me. I would not trick you into
Ouijaing.
Wouldn't that be terrible? You're secretly Ouijaing. That would be without your consent. Trick.
I just was remembering how our best boy Zach Baggins has a very distinct way of saying Ouija. I think he says Ouija board.
Yeah, I say Ouija.
Yeah,
but a lot of people say Ouija.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care.
That might even not be like just the way he says it's very strange. But anyways, hit me.
Okay, so what exactly is the Ouija board?
How dare you?
Where did it come from? What does it do? Does it actually work? And what's the proof? So it might not work at all. And I'm going to include some user experiences and not just the science. I'm going to go there. Is it really all bad? And if not, where did it all come from? Okay. But also, I want to share some interesting things that I discovered while I was digging into the topic. And I want you to think about this. This is where I don't want you Googling. I just want you writing down your thoughts as they come to you. What does the Ouija board have in common with abolition of slavery, women's right to vote, and improving conditions for Indigenous peoples?
Well, at this point, I would think nothing.
Good.
You want me to write it?
Think that way, you closed-minded jerk. Okay, so after all that, I'll share some spooky Ouija board stories with you from friends and followers and fans, and the good stuff.
Mm.
Are we ready to dig in?
Yeah.
Okay. I feel compelled to tell you that the majority of this information was collated from Google, Wikipedia, and such. I'm not going to call out the sources. I'll just put it on our podcast. But there was someone that stood out in particular to me, and that was author and historian. Her name is Catherine Troy. Okay. I think her Instagram is Bathory's Closet on Instagram.
Okay.
So she had this really cool, unique perspective with insight I hadn't heard or read before. But she also writes dark romance, fantasy shit. Mm-hmm. She's all over the internet.
That sounds like taking two of your interests and putting them together.
Right. And so I just encourage people to check it out because I'm going to be picking up one of her books.
Okay.
Let's get to the boring shit first. You need to understand this before we learn more about the Ouija board. 10, 15. Little... Okay, history lesson. Something called the American Spiritualist Movement / spiritualism. So spiritualism is a social religious movement popular in the 19th and early 20th centuries, according to which an individual's awareness persists after death and may be contacted by the living. So there's two important parts. Awareness and consciousness persist after death, and it can be contacted. Okay? So furthermore, the afterlife, or quote-unquote spirit world, is seen by spiritualists as a static place, not as a static place, but as one in which spirits continue to interact and evolve. Mm-hmm. So it's not like heaven, hell, and then we're in life. It's like this growing, interacting, evolving space.
Okay, so not static.
Not static at all. And then these two beliefs, that contact with spirits is possible and that spirits are more advanced than humans, lead spiritualists to believe that spirits are capable of advising the living on moral and ethical issues and the nature of God. So that's why some spiritualists will follow like spirit guides.
Oh, okay.
And that's like specific spirits that are relied upon for spiritual direction.
Right. And
which is really quite cool.
Sorry, what century was this again that this came into play? I think we've talked about it before, but I'm just trying to remember.
Like it says popular in the 19th and early 20th centuries. Yeah. So I found it really interesting to learn that the hotspot for this movement was in upstate New York.
I'm walking here.
I'm sorry, New York. I'm so sorry. They deserve that. Anyway, where it first appeared in the 1840s, if that helps. So, fun fact, and I don't know who they are, but I guess, like they, often called this the burned over district of upstate New York because it was said that the area was set ablaze with spiritual fervor. And every time I read that, I would go like, yes.
I would do that, but things would get really loud. You wouldn't be able to hear. My tits would hit the desk.
Pillowy tits would just knock everything over.
Really? It makes me think of Pentecostals. No offense to Pentecostals whatsoever, but they're very, I would use the word fervent in their beliefs, as I understand.
Great. This region of New York State was an environment in which many thought direct communication with God or angels was possible, and that God would not behave harshly. For example, that God would not condemn an unbaptized infant to an eternity in hell.
Interesting.
Which, believe it or not, people do believe. Let's not go there. Recent works have argued that these revivals in Western New York had a unique and lasting impact upon religious and social life of the entire nation, which is kind of cool. So the big daddies, as I call them, no one else calls them this, just me, of spiritualism are two dudes named Swedenborg and Mesmer, but fuck them.
Swedenborg
and Mesmer? But fuck them. Instead,
we don't like them.
Spiritualists often set March 31st, which is coming up, as the beginning of their movement because on this date, the Fox sisters, Kate and Margaret Fox of Hydesville, New York, reported that they had made contact with a spirit that was later claimed to be the spirit of a murdered peddler whose body was found in the house but like no record was ever found of that. That's just like what they claimed. The spirit was said to have communicated through rapping noises. And the important part of this was it was audible to onlookers.
So not just the sisters.
Not just the sisters. They were using this like medium of hearing the sound to believe that this was happening.
Okay.
So as they're known as like the first celebrity mediums, the sisters quickly became famous for their public seances in New York. So what we have basically is this belief system, spiritualism, combined with what many believe to be physical proof of interacting with those spirits.
Okay.
This movement continued to hold firm for decades. Why haps could that be? Maybe because of all the deaths and such in the aftermath of the Civil War. And I found a quote on this. With so many husbands, fathers, and sons lost in the conflict's bloody battles, spiritualism, the belief that dead can speak to the living, had only gained steam with people desperate for connection to departed loved ones and greater meaning for their own lives. See how it all kind of like comes together? It's quite beautiful. One well-known example of this is that of Mary Todd Lincoln, who, grieving the loss of her son, organized seances in the White House, which were attended by her husband, and I will say his name incorrectly because I'm going through it right now as a Canadian, President Abraham Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know the guy, do you?
Not familiar. No. Even though I did recently listen to a podcast about him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Link alone. What a weird name. Anyway, the surge of spiritualism during this time was said to be a direct response to those massive battlefield casualties, which is kind of cool. One way to explore spiritualism was through visiting seances and mediums like this, but that was really a pastime of middle and upper classes. Like, we couldn't all just go to the White House for a seance.
No.
That's not within our reach. So
wouldn't want to go there now.
I want it to be.
Even if there was a seance.
Governor Trump wouldn't allow that. And if you access them, they can tell us things. So cool. Oh, wait, where am I?
Like, if we access the spirit, like the spirits through a seance, they can tell us things.
Yeah.
This is what you're saying. Gotcha. Okay.
So like, we have this idea, it's taken hold, which is that spirits are among us. They are accessible. If you can access them, they can tell you things. But, we don't all have the Fox sisters on retainer. And then you've got this intense desire from people to seek out and explore new philosophies like this because of all like the death and destruction that they're experiencing. But do they have the means? In walks the Ouija board.
I see.
So where there is a will, there is a way. And spiritualists reportedly began using a talking board that is a flat board with letters on it and a planchette to pinpoint the letters to contact the spirits themselves. News of this in these, like, they're calling them spiritualist camps. News of this, quite literally news, like it was in a newspaper. Talking board began circulating, and a man named, he was a businessman, a shitty one, but he was one, Charles Kennard. And he read about this and he pulled together investors to, of course, commercially exploit the idea, as all great Americans do. Of course. That's what you do.
It's like Monopoly. But that's
yeah.
another thing entirely.
Yep.
Thus,
Kennard Novelty Company was born with its sole purpose dedicated to making, marketing, and selling these talking boards.
I have just one quick question. I have been writing other notes down, but just to recap, this was just something that somebody made. They're just like, hey, I'm going to take this board, I'm going to put a bunch of letters on it, and try to speak to, the spirit world with this.
Yeah, it really grew organically out of the spiritualist movement and camps. So what really happened is they were using different methods to contact the spirits, and they became upset with how long it was taking, like yelling out a letter and then finding things like the table turning, moving or whatever.
Right.
So they wanted a quicker method to actually get a response. And that was where this board with letters on it came out of. And they would work through the bodies.
And they felt that was the real thing. That was the real deal.
Yeah. Okay. That was the medium in lieu of a real physical medium there to facilitate things. That was how it was going to come through.
And to channel the energy of the players, as it were. Okay.
Yeah. To bridge the gap, I guess.
Okay.
And make something appeal to our actual senses, like a noise or a visual, seeing an ABC, That's where it came from. And then Kennard was like, ooh, this is going to take off. Money.
Yeah.
Money.
Exactly.
Anyway. Yeah. That's how it kind of came out.
Yeah.
So
the end. All right. Well, thanks for listening to Ghosts, I guess.
Love you. Be safe out there. Okay. So the next step, interestingly enough, one of Kennard's investors was a local attorney. He was actually a patent lawyer named Elijah Bond. And he believed that his sister-in-law, Helen Peters, was a quote-unquote strong medium.
Okay.
I like to call myself a weak large. That's my joke. Did you like it?
Literally. I didn't really.
I just pictured myself as like a really weak, large lady. Anyway.
Okay, but
Helen Peters.
You're tall. You're not large.
Let's move on. Okay. Helen Peter played a critical role in what the Ouija board is today. She gave it the name Ouija, and she demonstrated to a patent officer in his office that it works, which is insanely remarkable achievement, or like a lightning strike of luck, given that achieving a patent for the board and being able to market the board as something that actually works and having a patent behind that notion, like, definitely helped with its literal monumental commercial success. So first, the name Ouija. It came to Helen Peters, but in later documentation, it was revealed that she was wearing a locket with a picture of a woman, and the name Ouija was written beside the woman. And many believe now that was probably a photo of the female author Ouida, Ouida, and maybe it was just like read incorrectly or whatever. And that's one thing.
And it was one of those
there's also
like,
the notion that like,
and what's it called? And she's like, it's called window fan.
Window fan.
Like just took a look at what was around her, and then was like, oh, it's this. Yeah, that's what it is.
People think it's also a mix of like the words "oui," which is French for yes, and then "ja," German, so yes. I don't know. That's not what the marketers say about it.
Okay.
Now to the patent. So I'm going to take this fun story of exploitation directly from a Smithsonian magazine.
Ooh.
Covering the history of the Ouija board.
Aren't you so fancy?
The men knew that they wouldn't get their patent if they couldn't prove that the board worked. So Bond, who you'll remember, patent attorney, and was Helen Peters, the strong medium's brother-in-law, brought the indispensable Peters to the patent office in Washington, D.C. when he filed his application. So he brought her along. There, the chief patent officer demanded, and I picture like a big, just fat white man just smashing his hand on a desk. Sorry.
I mean, that's probably
just like red-faced.
Yeah.
Just a pompous baboon of a man. Yeah. Okay. Demanded.
Woman hating. Yeah.
Yeah. So he demanded the demonstration. If the board could accurately spell out his name, which was supposed to be unknown to Bond and Peters, he'd allow the patent application to proceed. They all communed with the spirits, and the planchette faithfully spelled out the patent officer's name. Whether it was mystical spirits or the fact that Bond, as a patent attorney, may have simply known the man's name is unclear, but on February 10th, 1891, a white-faced and visibly shaken official awarded Bond a patent for his new toy or game. There you go. And just like that, like all great American companies, Kennard Novelty Company had profited immeasurably from the invisible labor of a woman, Helen Peters. She probably wasn't a stakeholder.
It's a song as old as time.
Oldest time. Yeah. You probably can guess it. The board did go on to become wildly successful, but before long, the infighting of the men ousted Bond and Kennard from the company, leaving the others to lead the company while they all fought publicly like little babies. Like publicly meaning like in news pages over the title of Who Invented the Ouija Board, when we all know that none of them invented it. They just commercialized it. They appropriated the idea from the spiritualists and sold it en masse to a literal grieving population that was begging for a means to connect with loved ones. There you go. Over 5 months in 1944, as an example of this, as World War II raged, a single New York department store sold over 50,000 of the boards.
Holy.
And the trend continued where whenever there was like uncertain times, people turned to the board and sales would spike. Up until 1973. That's what I wrote. I wrote that. Dun, dun, dun. Anyway.
The spirits told me. I already have a feeling.
Did.
I'm not going to say. I have a feeling I know what impacted it, but I'm not going to say anything.
Before I get to the downfall of the Ouija board and why I think it needs to fire its PR person, I need to go back to the first thing because I want to hear your thoughts on this. After hearing all that, what do you think the Ouija board has in common with abolition of slavery, women's rights, and improving conditions for Indigenous people?
I don't know.
Like, just put it out there.
Okay, you're giving me three major ones. Abolition of slavery is the first one. What does it have to do with slavery ending?
Yeah.
Something to
the
do,
fight to end slavery.
Lincoln or whatever the heck it's.
Lincoln.
And like his mom or something, because like he was connected to that. So that's my thought on that one. What's the other one? Women's rights.
Yep.
I mean, there was a woman involved in making it a thing. So I don't know if there was some
that is true.
Some pushback on that. And
that's a good perspective.
What was the other one?
Improving conditions for Indigenous peoples.
I'm not sure. That one I'm just not sure.
I would have had no idea about any of this unless I did this Ouija board episode. So here is my argument as to why the Ouija board should have at least a few positive connotations with it, even if it's through like 6 degrees of separation. The spiritualist movement was driven in part by reformers, okay? And aside from or in addition to these spiritualist beliefs, they were notably publicly uncomfortable with the more mainstream churches because those churches did little to fight slavery and even less to advance the cause of women's rights.
Oh, okay.
And then from there, another social reform movement with significant like spiritualist involvement was the effort to improve conditions of Native Americans. This is where Catherine Troy, the historian and author, she wrote in A Study of Indian Ghosts and Seances. Undoubtedly, on some level, spiritualists recognized the Indian specters that appeared at seances as a symbol of the sins and subsequent guilt of the United States in its dealings with Native Americans. Spiritualists were literally haunted by the presence of Indians. In order to confront the haunting and rectify it, they were galvanized into action. So the political activism of spiritualists on behalf of Indians was thus the result of combining white guilt, fear of the divine judgment, and a new sense of purpose and responsibility. So in part, the Ouija board was born from a movement that was taking a stand against slavery and for women's rights and the improved conditions among Native Americans. And to quote my girl Martha, I personally think that's a very good thing.
Mm-hmm. I just want to acknowledge that this is facts and information and writings from America, like United States of America, not North America. And we call Indians and Native Americans Indigenous people or First Nations people. And that it is not a reflection of how we talk about that group, but just there's like a direct quote.
Literal direct quote, which is why we did the quote, literal direct quote. Also, I wonder when that was published.
Not sure. I mean, like, as I understand, and again, I don't want to be constantly hating on the States, even though there's lots of reasons to right now, but I think a lot of, they still call Indigenous people Indians, which is horrible. Anyways.
I mean, there are people here that do that too. Like a lot. They just don't know any better. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to the other part. What do you think happened to make this beloved board, which once stood as like a sign of comfort in dark times to become this inherently dark, dangerous, demonic symbol.
What do I think made it happen?
Yes. And as a hint, December 26, 1973 was when shit hit the fan. What do you think happened?
I'm not sure what the relevance of the date is, but my immediate thought as we started talking was, when did the Satanic Panic happen? Because
what is that?
The Satanic Panic?
What is that? Please tell me about it.
Okay. Maybe that's something that'd be really fun to actually do.
It could be related. It could be related to the real thing, and it does seem related to the real thing. I need to Google this.
So there was just a time, and again, I'm not an expert, but there was a time in I thought it was early to mid 80s.
You're right. Yeah.
But so maybe it was a little bit sooner than that, or maybe it was a response to what you're about to talk to me about. But essentially, it was like kind of the more modern version of the witch hunt, where like there was certainty that, you know, there were satanic worshipers, and
my God, yes.
And I feel like it was some kind of like the Christians were just up in arms, and it was very important that your children were, you know, going to church. And I think it had something to do with, what's his name? Alexander, let's say Crawley, but we've been watching Downton Abbey, so maybe that's why I have that last name in my head. But who I believe is who wrote the Satanic Bible, or this is a bunch of incorrect information, but people were like expanding their minds, looking more into that, maybe questioning the church, and had a lot to do with like heavy metal music as well, being a part of the Satanic Panic. And
this could have been like a precursor to all of that, like setting it all off.
Yeah. And like, I think also too, it had a lot to do with, you know, if something happened specifically, like a murder or something, you know, it was like a lot of jumping to, oh, this is an example of like rituals and like satanic rituals and sacrifices, and that was the whole thing.
Pretty spot on. It says the panic originated in 1980 with the publication of a book called Michelle Remembers, and it was co-written by Canadian psychiatrist Lawrence Pazder. Does that sound familiar? And his patient, and future wife, Michelle Smith, which used the controversial and now discredited, of course, practice of recovered memory therapy to make claims about satanic ritual abuse involving Smith. Fuck. You're so close. You're so close.
Tell me about it.
Okay. December 26th, 1973. The Exorcist opens on 30 screens across a scant 24 theaters. A limited release, of course, as it's not expected to do well for a horror film right after Christmas with no big ticket stars. Studio execs are shocked to learn it's a runaway box office hit, with people lining up for hours in freezing temps to get a seat, and then screaming, crying, fainting, vomiting, and fleeing theaters across the nation, all before lining up to see it again and again. Newsweek reported on December 26th, a movie called The Exorcist opened in theaters across the country, and since then, all hell broken loose. Cute.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. It quickly got an expanded release to 366 screens, and the first run lasted just over 2 years, which is fucking insane.
Wow. Wicked is already out of theaters. Like, what's that about?
I don't know, man. Deserves to run forever. Unlimited. Notably, it's reported that some Catholic viewers, particularly those who had lapsed in their faith, and some priests, experienced spiritual crises. Of course they did. The film was particularly denounced by Catholics, and they argued the release date was especially sacrilegious.
Oh.
It was supposed to be released like on Christmas, but delays happened or whatever. Anyway, interestingly, and most importantly for our discussion, The Exorcist is described as the biggest recruiting poster the Catholic Church has had since the film says that it has the true faith feared by the devil and that its rituals can exorcise demons. In 2010, the Library of Congress selected the film for preservation in the United States National Film Registry as being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. So it's safe to say, like, it made an incredible impact on culture, sparked immeasurable conversations around religion, good, evil, the devil, possessions, whatever. So,
I mean,
you probably know this.
It's disturbing to watch it now. You know, like, even as someone who is like, I don't know, that there's a lot out there, you know, growing up when I did that. I'm not very naive. I'm not very sheltered in any way. I've seen a lot of fucked up movies. I've heard a lot of fucked up things. And I still think that that's a messed up movie. So for people of that time to go in and watch that movie and like things are looser with religion to an extent now that we're not as, like, people were a lot more faith-filled, I guess, back then, in my opinion. So to be in that society at that time and watch that movie, I can't even imagine what people...
Yeah. And they just wanted more and more and more. Like, they were going back, and one theater was like, we have a plumber, like, just here all the time now because the sinks are always full of vomit.
Ooh.
And I'm like, why did you need to tell us that?
Yeah.
You can probably like decipher, but why is The Exorcist important to the downfall of the Ouija board? If you've seen the movie, you'll recall that the main character, Reagan, became possessed by a demon, Captain Howdy, after interacting with a Ouija board. What a great name. That, combined with the absolute runaway success and cultural importance and impact of the movie, definitely cemented and devastated the image and made it to be dangerous and demonic. So The Exorcist wasn't the only movie to play with the idea of a Ouija board as a medium to access evil entities. There's constantly coming out with it. Many more followed suit and continue to this day. And the bad PR continues. But I want to personally advance something more for your thoughts. Before this, the Ouija board brought comfort in dark times. And then people would often turn to the church or their priest. Now they have other options and means for comfort. It doesn't mean that they'd particularly, turn away entirely. In fact, the early days, the board was held in such high regard because particularly people saw it as compatible with the church.
Mm-hmm.
Doing Ouija board on Saturday, heading to church on Sunday. But it gave another option, didn't it? And that option and that empowerment represented what? A threat.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think the Catholic Church or Christianity in general wanted to lose market share. Market share in what? Our souls. Who the fuck knows? Additionally, I don't think, maybe to a much lesser degree, that mediums wanted to empower people to be able to access the spirit world on their own.
Because then why would we need the churches?
Why would we need mediums? I can just get a Ouija board.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they demonized the board to secure whatever market share they had left and to frighten and scare people into relying on the church or mediums for safety against such dark things. Come to me, child. It's safe here. Like that deeply patriarchal thought rooted in disempowering the people and securing prominence and stature for themselves. And that's just like my 2 cents, because I've certainly become radicalized over the past couple of months with Premier Trump threatening our sovereignty. And I'm seeing things through this like power dynamic and control lens, and it's coloring everything I do, but that makes sense.
Have you watched Heretic?
No, but I want to. Is it heretic or heretic?
Well, I think heretic is the word.
Heretic, okay.
But
I've been saying it wrong.
it's really good.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that. I think some of the things you're saying kind of make me think of that. You should watch it.
Ooh.
With Johnny,
should I watch this
you'll be
tonight?
scared.
Is it scary? It is scary.
It's
Is
not
there
like
any
it's
kind
not
of-
like Exorcist scary, but
Are there themes of, or is there any like child abuse? Okay. Okay. I can maybe watch it.
well, there's I guess there's teenagers, but it's not child abuse. Yeah.
I'll give it a go. I'll report back.
All right.
Here's my measuring stick. Did Carly, was she able to watch it with you by her side?
I watched it when I was traveling. I don't think that's something she'd watch. No.
I might be able to get like in, and then we'll see. Okay. Anyway, I'm radicalized. I don't want this to like color this entire thing, trying to be fair. So I dug into people's comments on Reddit and the internet in general to find an alternate view of why.
Okay. I'm ready to hear.
Okay. I could not fucking find a viable theory as to why the Ouija board is inherently demonic. So I have to challenge the notion entirely that it is and question what media and other powers that be are telling me about it. And I have to question why they want me to stay away from it. Does that mean I think the Ouija board is harmless? No, absolutely not. I think on the whole, you will get out of it what you put into it. You'll get out of it what is hidden deep within and from the consciousness surrounding you. And I think there's a lot of harm that can be done if you're particularly influenced in one way or another by horror movies out there. Like if you believe it, you're probably going to get that out of it.
If you chase
And
the darkness, the darkness is going to come. Yeah.
And I have like, we'll get into why this is like truth in my head. And there are plenty of like popular examples of horrific acts being inspired by the Ouija board, both before 1973 and after. But I think to understand my point of view on this, that you're really just getting out of it what is already around you and within you and what you're predisposed to. You really need to hear how the Ouija board may work and what some studies that have been conducted understand its effect, if any. You have to know that. Okay, so I have to credit Reddit user Giada Acosta for tipping me off to something called the idiometer effect on the Ouija board. So I posted as Ghost, I guess, asking for stories. She was just like, it's idiometer effect. Hadn't heard of it before. Her tip led me down like a Google rabbit hole learning about the idea, how it relates to the Ouija board and consciousness. So thank you to Reddit user and hopeful listener, Giada. I'll go back to the Smithsonian article. Ouija boards work on a principle known to those studying the mind for more than a century as the idiometer effect. In 1852, physician and physiologist William Carpenter published a report for the Royal Institute of Great Britain examining automatic muscular movements that take place without conscious will or volition of the individual. And they want you to think of this in terms of crying in reaction to a sad film.
Okay.
You can see it happening. You don't make it yeah. Almost immediately, other researchers saw applications of the idiometer effect in popular spiritualist pastimes. So think of like the dowsing rod, like table turning or whatever. Around the same time, chemist and physicist Michael Faraday, intrigued by table turning, conducted a series of experiments that proved to him, though not to spiritualists, that the table's motion was due to the idiometer actions of the participants. Still, the most interesting thing about the Ouija board might be the latest research around it from the University of British Columbia that shows it actually does work, just not in the way we might assume. And I will caution you to go too hard one way or the other. Like this is only mysticism or this is only science. I think they are both just beautifully intertwined. Okay.
And sorry, when you say it works, you mean the Ouija board?
The Ouija board works. I will describe how we know it works.
Okay.
The study. This is from an article in Baltimore Magazine by someone named Ron Cassie, and it expands on the mechanism of action with this cool research. So a few years ago, Sidney Fells, F-E-L-S, professor of electrical and computer engineering at UBC, brought out a Ouija board at a Halloween party attended by graduate students, including many who were foreign-born and unfamiliar with how it works. They assumed it required batteries. No, you don't need batteries. It will move, I told them, Fells recalls. I gave them some mystical explanation tied to Halloween, and they had a good laugh. But lo and behold, when Fells returned later, the grad students were enthralled because the planchette was moving on its own, or so it appeared. The mechanism at work was actually called the idiometer effect, which refers to the influence of the unconscious mind on muscle movements.
Mm-hmm.
Days later, still fascinated by the students' experience, Fells shared the story with colleague Ron Rensink, a psychology and computer science professor, and that got the ball rolling about whether the board could serve as a tool to look at unconscious knowledge. So we didn't know if we'd find anything, but when we did, the results really surprised us, Fells says. When study participants were asked to answer or guess at a set of challenging questions, they were correct about 50% of the time. But when responding while using the board, which participants believed had the ability to quote unquote receive correct answers from another person teleconferencing via a robot like Ouija partner, they scored correctly upwards of 65% of the time. The implication here is that one's unconscious, okay, this is from the article, not me. The implication is that one's unconscious is much smarter than anyone knew, capable of pulling up bits of stored information not accessible to the conscious mind. What the fuck does that remind you of? The iCloud, the Akashic record.
Yeah.
So results in a follow-up study replicated those findings, so it's been replicated, which they then reported in the academic journal Consciousness and Cognition. I need to pause because everything's coming back to it these days. I absolutely think that this could be the implication that our unconscious mind is smarter than we think, but it's definitely not the only one. I tend to believe that it could also mean you are pulling information from shared consciousness, which could be spirits in the Akashic record or the iCloud or whatever it is, or even from the consciousness of people around you, maybe that are also using the board. And that is my 2 cents. So I have to propose something else, that the Ouija board is tapping into and transmitting consciousness, either your own or someone else's, and directing you via the idiometer effect to the answers. This could not be more true in my own head. Like, this is truth in my own head. So,
I mean, I have a lot of thoughts, but
I bet you do. I've got some spooky stories from friends and families to share with you, but I need to hear your thoughts first. Number one, after hearing all of that, do you think the board is inherently demonic? And would you consider using one after hearing this?
No, I don't think it's inherently demonic.
Okay.
Based on all the facts that you've laid in front of me. In fact, to be like, it's still demonic would be like the way that, ignorant people will only believe what they want to believe despite being given the actual facts. So, no. Would I use it? No. But I wouldn't, I don't want to do a double negative. I would not use it because I don't think it's anything. So what you've done is you pushed me so far to, I don't believe it's channeling anything spirits wise.
Spirits.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think,
do you think it could tap into, if you don't believe that it's channeling spirits, do you think it could do you believe the research where they say it's tapping into something within yourself that you aren't aware of?
yeah, I think when you were talking and some of the notes I had, like, okay, so first of all, 65% is not that much more than 50%. I thought you were going to tell me
65, and it was statistically significant.
Okay. I thought you were going to tell me like 80% more, or like 80% versus 50%. And I was like, holy fuck. It's not nothing, but it's not shock me.
And it's upwards of 65%.
Yeah. The more you talked, like the more you gave details of that study, my takeaway is that the Ouija board is just a tool, an inanimate tool, like anything else. If you have a pencil, the pencil doesn't draw. You utilize the pencil to draw. So my feelings are that if anything, like I'm a huge believer in the higher self because I have experienced it. And I know that it's not something you can easily access at all times. It comes when it needs to come. And if you're listening, it can be helpful. Some people may think that is a spirit, maybe. Again, I still believe in ghosts, but I just don't think in this instance I would say that's what it is. I think the human connection between people, the energy connection between people, and all focusing your thoughts and mind on one thing, I could see how there would be connections between people that could potentially, like, if you're asking a question and I don't know the answer, but we're working on it together, you may be able to send that to me by us concentrating very deeply and utilizing the tool. But I don't think, again, that it's a spirit. I think it's just an example of how powerful humans are, essentially. I think, you can, again, if you're able to somehow take a quiet moment and try to access your higher self, then you will also maybe going that extra level of tapping into the Akashic record. And maybe some stuff is filtering back down. But again, I think it's all just a human thing. Like, it's just like the human is a channel and they can channel up to, I don't think it's in the truest nature of how we've been taught, where there's a spirit there answering questions. I think a spirit would be like, I don't want to do this. Like, unless they have something to say to you, like, unless they're desperate to say something to you, they're probably like, like, what would be the incentive for them to talk to you?
I think the framework in my mind of what I think ghosts are and spirits are is just an enmeshment of energy and consciousness that's separated from a body. And my consciousness is also partially in my body, partially potentially separated and enmeshed. And so that tool, it could tap into and connect with spirits in that way.
But I think
in the same way that, like, I would use a medium.
Yeah, but I believe that more. I feel like you can be touched with more openness to what is outside our, like, what we can see, like what our reality is. There's stuff outside of that. Like, there's only so much of what we can see, and I think there are people that are more sensitive, but just born more sensitive, attuned, and connected into that. So I'm more likely to believe a medium. I think that it's the spread between, we just asked them questions and they were like only 50% able to answer it, and the spread of, and then they did this together and then it was 65%. And I think what really I kind of latched onto is when you were saying, they're saying that people are actually like their higher self is smarter than they are. And we've had this conversation before about the sleep paralysis and how you're like, no, I've been in a brand new location and I don't know the room that well. And yet suddenly I'm sleeping and I can see every aspect of the room. And my argument to you was, well, you still walked in and you still looked at the room. So just because your, brain that you usually connect to didn't maybe take in every detail, there could be that higher self that has taken in everything. And now you're accessing it through being unconscious and sleeping. So I feel
I
like
mean, you're in good company, because there are a lot of, and I couldn't even get into this, but there are a lot of famous authors and people that have used the Ouija board to write books, or there was a spirit on the other side that was writing the book and it was just channeling through the author. And then, someone mentioned how they didn't really believe it was another spirit. They were just using the Ouija board to help magnify what was already within them that they couldn't see. I think Sylvia Plath used it for a poem once. It's very interesting. Yeah. I can't confirm it or say that what she believed, but
I feel like some human made this tool to some rando as in a desperate attempt to be able to like, considering what was happening in the world at that time, desperate attempt to be able to reach out to people that they lost. There's just a lot of grief at that time. And I think it's very human to do that. But there was nothing that has ever really validated that it's anything but a piece of wood and a planchet, or, piece of cardboard and a planchet. So like my idea is like, if I take this whiteboard eraser and then I have like a circle with A, B, C, and I put my little hands on it, like, yes, I'm essentially mimicking the Ouija board.
I think the validation, I think the validation comes from the fact that, yes, it's just a board. Yes, it's just a planchette. But it was exceptionally lucky in that, like, the reason it is where it is and it is its own thing and an important tool is because it's designed in such a way, and there are probably many other iterations before this or attempts at tools that did not succeed because they weren't designed in a way that happened to tap into the idiometer effect. And,
but what about the crystal that you hold up and you ask a question? And then
that's potentially another tool. I'm saying the Ouija board is no different than any other tool we currently have.
I think
that will tap into that.
I think that its great popularity is just right place, right time. This person took it. They were able to somehow calm the patent office, and then it became everywhere. And then everyone just sort of accepted it as a certain tool that could talk to people. It's just
I think it goes even further back to the spiritualists, where, they probably had many iterations to find a tool that worked. And what worked was a flat board with letters and a planchette that was able to amplify the physical vibrations of a body to move around.
Well, and like what you said is that, like, that being able to like put your hands on something and then your body just moves, like your fingers start moving without you even being like thinking about it. It's a little bit like muscle memory. It's like when I learn how to play a song, it takes me forever but eventually I'm not remembering it. It's in my hands. Do you know what I mean? And then I don't think about it. Yeah. I don't have to think about it. I know how to
typing.
Play. Yeah, exactly.
Like type with my eyes closed. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. And I also think very much, here's a big old conspiracy that I was thinking of, because I know we have to wrap up and you want some stories. But so the Christian church did not like the Ouija board and the ability for humans to essentially have their own spirituality, like to have their own quiet way of connecting, to the spirits. And that, the church wants to be the conduit for that. So what if the church had something to do with the creators of The Exorcist? Because what it basically ended up showing was you fuck around with this thing, there's going to be these evil spirits that are going to come out. The only people who can save you are the church. Like, it's a conspiracy, but it just seems like it falls into place just a little bit too perfectly.
Interesting, right? And then I also started thinking, why can't I buy a fucking Ouija board anywhere? I bought one off of Amazon, and it's not a proper planchette. It's just like, I can't find it. Why can't I find one?
I don't know.
It's Hasbro has it, but I couldn't find one. Like, it was eventually sold off. Big old story I don't care about, but whatever. It's just like, are they being paid to not distribute this? Is there a Christian amongst the leadership team that's just like, we're not selling that shit?
Well, it's, in my opinion, just the last kind of thought on that is that, like, whether you're accessing the spirit world, as it were, through a Ouija board or whether you're going to church, isn't it just important that you're trying to connect to, like, something outside
Rachel,
of yourself?
They don't give a shit about that. They don't give a shit that there's room for everyone and everyone. It's just crabs in a bucket. It's all like, I must be the top and only.
Yeah.
That's how it's just core weakness. Anyway,
Okay.
we're running out of time.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you, so I did post on Reddit. I collected some stories. This one is in particular supporting my perspective. And it's from Reddit user North-Employment231. And they wrote, "Warning, this will change your entire perspective on life. While nothing negative has happened to me, I can't promise the same for you. Get 3 people, a Ouija board, and a paper and a pen. Only 2 will be touching the planchette. The 3rd person will walk into another room and write down a 4-digit number on the paper. Fold it up and put it into their pocket. They will then come out and sit across the room. The 2 people touching the planchette will ask, what number did so-and-so write on the paper? Try this multiple times at different hours of the day in 3 different houses. I guarantee this will work. I've tried it with a few groups of friends, and they still don't understand what the fuck happened. I even offered $10K to non-believers that if it does, they have to pay up. No one would take the offer. I just doubt that, but like, whatever."
Okay.
Again, warning. I'm not sure how dangerous these things are, and I'm not claiming to know, but it did. And then someone wrote that they did exactly this on multiple occasions and a quality assurance test. And yes, it did indeed tell them exactly what was written. They went so far as to have the friend with paper go in another room, and it still worked. They had some unsettling experiences back then, haven't touched one in a decade, mostly because no one else was willing.
Well, I believe it. I believe that 100%. I believe that happened. I don't think that validates the Ouija board. I think
it doesn't validate the Ouija board as what?
As the reason for that coming down and for that to happen. It is not the reason. You could probably do that without a Ouija board and it would work. And the reason why I say this...
What would you do it with? Like another tool, right?
Friend would just... Yeah. I don't know. Maybe you'd be thinking... and it's like the psychic test where we try so hard to do. And the reason why I think it doesn't work very often is because we're not in the same place. And the reason why...
I think it's because there's no tool for the mechanism to come through, like a Ouija board.
Maybe, but hear me out.
So there it is working. It's working as a medium.
Hear me out. There's a game that I play that I've played many times with a large group of people. I'm talking if you have 10 people or more, and it's called the Win,
okay.
Where, Win, Why game. Okay? Where. Yeah. Okay. And I guess it's like Mad Libs, sort of. But you have pieces of paper and a pen. Maybe that's what's channeling it. Seems weird, but... And, I have my piece of paper and I write the win or the who, put the who. Fold it out, send it to the person beside me. They put the what. Fold it up, person beside me, they put the win. So you do that and it's just fun, especially as you're getting drunk, because you start reading it and it's just hilarious. And people always want to push the envelope and say outrageous things. And it's always a crowd pleaser. It's so fun. Every single time that I've played that game with, and we're talking like 10 or more people. Eventually, you do enough rounds and they start syncing up. People start putting the same things down, or the whole who, what, where, when, why, all put down by different people will read, and it won't be absurd. Like, it'll be funny because they'll be choosing funny things, but they'll connect. And it's like, how on earth could this be happening? And it's because we're syncing. All synced. We sync. So that's why I don't necessarily think you need a specific tool to do that. I think enough humans all focused in on the same thing. It makes it better.
It makes it more amplified.
But why?
Because it's tapping in deeper.
But how?
Idiometer effect.
But wouldn't that still be the same? Is what I just described maybe not the idiometer effect?
Because muscle movements. It's a different effect. It's a different effect, but it's working. It's something synced somewhere. Tapping into something somewhere. I wonder if there's another way to amplify that.
Maybe. I think it's all kind of the same thing. Different facets of the exact same thing, which is connecting to the humans around us, because we're all just channels of energy. And it's also connecting to the part of us that we are closed off from, that is there. That's like what I would refer to as the higher self.
I feel like if I sat in my living room and I asked some questions, like maybe I would get some sort of a sign or a symbol, but it would be disparate. Like it would just be hard or more subjective. But if I sat in my living room and used a proper Ouija board and asked some questions, my chance of getting or tapping into something would be higher.
Okay, so I would do this with you when Carly and I come visit you, which will happen at some point this year. I would do it. First of all, Carly would have to be signing off. She would have to listen to this podcast and decide how she feels. But I would do it the day before we're leaving, because I don't want any spooky dooky stuff being attached to me for days while I'm there.
I will not do the Ouija board with you, because you would be coming into it thinking or feeling that there would be, even subconsciously, I would have to go into it with someone who is fully just aware and belief that they wouldn't be touching into a demonic or darkness. Like there would have to be that real belief, just so I wouldn't accidentally tap into something weird.
I guess I really feel like we wouldn't, based on some stuff. However, there's still that little nugget in my brain, because there is good, safe spirits and there are bad, scary spirits. And I know that they exist because I've been around where I felt both of those things. And if you're going to even just test it out to see, can I connect to a spirit? Can I see if I feel that energy and it gets channeled through me? I feel there's still a chance to either connect with a good, safe, benevolent spirit and a not so safe, malevolent spirit. I think that either of those things could happen, because I believe both of them exist. I would not be going looking for it. I think some people are. Some people put their hands down there and they're trying to reach out to the spirits, and they want to entice darkness.
Whether they realize it or not.
That's not something, I think down deep in my heart and soul, that's not something I want. But I do think that if you open, and if we believe it's a possibility that spiritual contact could come in, there could be bad spiritual contact that could come in as well.
I'm not convinced or sold yet that there are pure dark spirits or pure dark energy. I'm not sold that there's not. I just it hasn't come to me yet what my belief on that is. I am leaning toward no for a myriad of complicated reasons, but I'm not there yet. So I need to dig into that more.
I think that the next episode should be me getting into more like the history or researching where this idea of dark spirits and demonic spirits come from.
I wonder if
it's
Jim
all just the church
could join us and talk about what he thinks dark spirits are.
Yeah, we could do 2 episodes. We could do me being like, okay, I've done my research and we've had this conversation about it. And then we bring in Jim and we say, You know,
What do you think?
yeah, we hear about demons. I don't think I've ever talked or seen or felt a demon. So I think part of me doesn't believe in hell. Actually, I don't believe in hell. I just don't. I think hell is what you make of the world as you're living in it. And I think then you die and you just become part of everything. And it could be a positive experience. If you got darkness, it might not be a positive experience, but I don't believe you just go down into a place where you're burning eternally. It just doesn't, it seems like a good story, I guess.
But it seems like a ruse to get us to follow a certain set of rules that fit the purpose of a certain type of person. I'll get into it. People are going to get mad at me.
But people who want
do we have time? Do we have time for one more story?
Yes, and then I gotta go.
This is supposed to be spooky.
Supposed to be.
It was. No, this is my spooky story. It's from a user called Intelligent Tie 6759. They responded directly to us. I wasn't there at the time, but in the 90s, a group of drunk teens in our village decided to do this for shits and giggles. The story goes that maybe 5 or 6 kids had the tip of their finger on an upturned shot glass as it shot around the board, saying various things. It ended when the glass started moving faster and in faster and faster circles before exploding. There were maybe 20 people there that night, and they all report the same thing even now, 30 years later. Possibly someone was pushing too hard, but the glass literally exploded. This happened in a small village called Parton on the northwest coast of the UK, in an underpass of the village train station, approximately 93, 94. What I wouldn't give to have just to have a girls' night, dark room, a glass of wine, and to have a first-hand spooky account of one of the people that was there that night, telling us about it.
So this Reddit,
whether I believe it or not, I just love those freaking ghost stories where well, one time,
So this is the person that posted it on Reddit was one of those people or just heard about it?
No, it was lore in the town. They weren't there, and it was just 20 people reported it, and this happened.
Seems a little unbelievable.
Love it.
Seems a little unbelievable.
Does I'm doing a call out. If you live in Parton or lived in Parton and you fiddled with a Ouija board under the village train station in the 90s, please reach out. Let's have a glass of wine together. Talk.
Yeah. As long as you're not an untoward sort of person because you're under a bridge.
I can handle it. I can handle an untoward person. You could just smack them with your pillowy tits and they'd just fly out of the room. Okay. Last thing. To answer the question, are Ouija boards really dangerous, like many say? User Bright Black Heaven resolutely wrote, no. They were created to be a toy for literal children. So it's absolutely safe to say this is positively incorrect. Mystical or not, these little boards work. There's no proof that they don't. And thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Okay.
Well done.
Well, I do think my last thought, which I have written down here, is that I think similar to the beginning of time, Homo sapiens slowly, being able to have a certain level of understanding and consciousness and the beginning of it as we know it as, human beings to this day. I feel like we were trying to understand, like the Mayans too. It's what's going on with the sun? What the hell is that? We need rain or this and that. And so there's gods that storytelling that we're going to have and we're going to put in place to explain things or to make things feel more comforting to us. That's a thing. That's you look into the history books. That's how they describe why we even have religion. I'm not saying I agree or disagree. I'm just saying it's a take. It's a hot take. And when you're telling me about when the popularity of the board came into play and sort of why people so desperately started using it and gaining popularity, it had a lot to do with grief and pain of loss. And you're not thinking clearly at all when you feel that way. That's just the truth. And you will do literally anything you can to try to get comfort. So for your brain to create a story that you're talking to someone who's passed away or a spirit or whatever because it gives you comfort, I don't see much of a difference from, the beginning to develop brain of the Homo sapien who's trying to understand the world. I think there might be a correlation there. Peace out, Seacrest.
We did it.
Tell us what you think, Claire.
Girl, you know what I think.
No, I'm talking about people who listen to us.
The people.
Yeah, we do already know what you think.
The people need to tell us.
Tell us.
Literally. Like, go on Reddit, go on our Instagram, email us, tell us what you think.
These people, they just want content, I think. We just need to...
Will you do the Ouija board with them?
And if you respond and you give us some stuff to talk about, some stuff to interact with, some thoughts, some challenging ways. I love to be challenged. That's why I have a partner I have. If you do that, then it is my guarantee that we will record another episode, and I will talk about the history of like demons and dark spirits, and we will do that within a 2-week period. So
what are you asking? I'm so lost.
That's
like,
just
what did you just ask them for?
You had an ADHD moment. I feel like you kind of just
like, what are you?
So if they go on, I'm making a commitment. If you show that you're listening and you want to engage, I think you turned off at some point. My commitment to them is that in but 2 weeks' time, we will have another podcast ready for them. And it will somewhat connect because it'll be about the dark spirits and the demons.
Do you feel comfortable making commitments for other people? Because I'm part of this and I'm not ready.
Okay, never mind.
Listener, that's Rachel's commitment. I'll do my best.
I said recorded. I didn't necessarily say out and ready for consumption. I just said recorded.
Okay.
I still hear the radio coming through my microphone. It's been very weird, very disconcerting. And I wonder when you start editing, are you going to hear what I'm hearing?
What are you hearing?
It's like,
is it just mumble gumble?
Yeah, it's just like an ad or something.
An ad. I don't hear shit, so I probably won't, but now I'm worried. Was it the entire time?
Yeah, mostly.
Maybe it's going to be like just subliminal messaging built in under the audio for all of our podcast listeners, and suddenly they're going to be like, I need to buy this thing off Temu.
Maybe it's the ghost being like, hey, I'm utilizing the radio to say hello, hello, hello.
This is the tool. This is the tool. Okay. We should log off and just end on a high note.
Okay, bye.
Okay, you have a lovely day. I'm going to go have more coffee.
I'm not going to have a lovely day. I got to go back to work, but we'll see you later.
Peace out. Bye.
Bye.